Good morning. Welcome to this webinar today. My name is Bill Baker with Firestorm, and we're pleased that you can join us for this Crisis Coach webinar. Today we're discussing creating a robust intelligence network. We're delighted to have you with us, and we invite you to become our Facebook friend, Firestorm Solutions. You can follow us on Twitter, Firestorm Soul, and there is a hashtag. Hashtag is Crisis Coach. Firestorm transforms crisis into value and empowers you to manage risk and crises. Firestorm expertise is crisis management, critical decision support, crisis communications, crisis public relations, and consequence management. Please keep in mind our presentation today is not complete without the accompanying oral comments and discussion. The work product should be discussed in conjunction with advice from your organization's personal counsel, and do not interpret this information as legal advice or legal opinion. Firestorm is delighted to have an ongoing relationship with our host and co-sponsor of this webinar, the University of Alabama College of Continuing Studies. And our good friend is with us today, Brenda Truelove. Brenda, over to you, please.
Good morning and welcome to everyone who's listening in on our webinar today. I hope you're enjoying a beautiful spring day as we are. Thank you for this opportunity to work with Firestorm to be able to promote crisis management understanding and thought leadership. We always try to highlight a program that we have going on in the future in our college while we are working on these webinars. And the one we'd like to highlight today, we are very excited to let you know that our Bama at Work Professionally Speaking workshop, which has been highly popular for the last 3 times that we have run it here on campus, that we're taking it on the road. We will be facilitating our workshop in the great city of Atlanta, Georgia in July, Huntsville, Alabama in June, and Mobile, Alabama in June as well. You can see that information on the slide. And our website is professionallyspeaking.ua.edu. All of these subject matters that we highlight during our webinars let us know how, even in crisis management, that a person needs to understand how to craft powerful and engaging messages, how to use your visual aids effectively, and especially in a crisis situation, how to overcome public speaking anxiety. So we're very happy to be able to take this workshop on the road. We're so fortunate to have the 2 foremost experts in the field of professionally speaking, Dr. Alexa Chilcutt and Dr. Adam Brooks. They are our facilitators for the workshop, and we're very excited that we're able to take it on the road. If you would like more information about our workshop, on the next slide, the general information shows our registration services number, our email address, my phone number, and sadly my picture. So thank you so much for this opportunity to work with you, Karen, today on this webinar. I'm looking forward to hearing and learning from you. I always pick up some little nugget that I can go forward with after participating in a webinar with you. And thanks to all those who are listening and participating today. We appreciate your interest in our programming.
Thank you, Brenda. I believe that Brenda mentioned that this is the University of Alabama College of Continuing Studies most popular ongoing program that they have. So if you're able to attend any of these, we encourage you to do so. Our presenter today is Karen Masullo. Karen is Firestorm's Chief Intelligence Officer and Executive Vice President. Karen, of course, has extensive experience in training in social media monitoring and social media programs, how to set up an intelligence network. Karen, over to you, please.
Thank you very much, Bill, and thank you very much, Brenda Truelove. We love our partnership that we have enjoyed over the past few years with the University of Alabama and all of your programs in continuing education, and look forward to many more. So thank you for your sponsorship of this information. I think it's valuable, and we always appreciate how well attended the sessions are. So once again, thank you so much. Everyone on the call, thank you for joining. I know for many of you this has been a spring break period and you're just returning to your offices or your schools and probably have 350 emails to catch up on. So I really appreciate your taking the time to sit for the next 45 minutes. I'm going to try not to go over. There's been a lot going on the past week on it. And so I'm going to try to bring us right to 11:15. If you have any questions during the session, because we do have sort of a jam-packed content-wise, you can use the GoToWebinar dashboard. It should be a little toolbar on the right-hand side of your screen. You can use the chat area to ask any questions or make any comments. And we're always happy to respond to those via email. You can also reach us at webinars@firestorm.com, and there'll be other contact information at the end of the session. So what we start with today is what keeps you up at night. When we started in the year, in January, we took a look at the year, and we said, what do we think the risks are going to be? And one of the two areas of key risk everybody was very concerned about, we focused on. We talked about strategies to mitigate risk, and we started off with a BRSA program, which is identifying behaviors of risk, and then we talked about how we can implement that program and what it takes to do an assessment to understand what our needs are regarding that program. And now today we're going to talk about a part of what that program requires, and that is an intelligence network and technology. Sometimes when we use the terms predictive intelligence, people get a little confused because the term predictive intelligence is used heavily by marketing folks, and marketing folks use that term to decide what to sell you. So I really like Led Zeppelin from back in the day. And there may be some of you on the call who don't know what Led Zeppelin is, and I will forgive you ahead of time. So let's say I like the Allman Brothers or Led Zeppelin, and it's going, based on that, I am in a group of people who probably also like specific movies, and I'm also in a group that likes specific books, and from that book, I'm probably also in a group that likes this specific type of antiperspirant and shampoo. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, we'll leave that conversation for a later day. But it is absolutely not what we're talking about here. What we're talking about here is how, rather than using intelligence for consumerism, we're really trying to understand how we can spot behaviors of concern before they turn into situations of crisis and tragedy. And it doesn't just relate to acts of violence. It can relate to situations of hacking, physical attacks on buildings, or vandalism. So there are lots of things that can be involved in this group. And the bottom line is we're trying to keep people and property and your community as a whole safer. So we have to think about what keeps you up at night and how can predictive intelligence, the analysis of data, in combination with people in real life people that you meet face-to-face and via technology, leveraging social media, come together to build a robust network that can support you like a net in times of crisis, and also certainly celebrate with you in times of appropriate celebration. So when we talk about what keeps you up at night, there are some pretty big buckets that are common to businesses and schools across the world. And the first is a loss of life. Some loss of life either on your property or that hits you personally or your organization personally. And it may happen on your property or off. It may be a result of something that occurs within your situation or not. You know, I remember back, and this is dating, but back on 911, the company I worked for, we realized we had 250 people in the air. Offices were Boston, New York, and Atlanta. So we knew we had people flying that route on the East Coast. And out of those 250 people we had in the air, 45 of them had the potential to be on any of those flights that day. And we just didn't know if they were. And 8 of those 45 people were part of our senior leadership team, people who we really needed, and there were 2 groups of them traveling together, one to a client engagement and one to one of our other offices. So we really had to think through afterward how we would respond in the future should something like that happen again. Natural disasters. Certainly every single state in this country and every place in the world has some natural disaster that affects it, whether it be ice storms to earthquakes to hurricanes to tornadoes. We all have our own peculiar weather patterns and need to really plan for those events. We have injuries on our property as opposed to a loss of life event on or off. We have those injuries that do happen on our property. We might have a major supplier interruption, whether you're a school or a nonprofit or a business. We all have things we use in order to do what we do on a daily basis. What if there is a natural disaster in another part of the world that keeps that product or services from being delivered to you as you normally anticipate? Do you have a backup? How would you know? How would you get the information that you might even need to plan for a backup? After the Japanese tsunami, there were companies that continued doing business in a resilient way because they had been watching and were keyed in to the news and the happenings. It was not a surprise. The tsunami itself was the earthquake, but even then, by following the various earthquake reporting services, there were some companies that just simply knew what was going on before others and were able to quickly make preparations for alternate suppliers during a very critical time. You may have an epidemic or a pandemic. We've seen a few of those around the country. We've seen insect-borne illness come into our country and create a level of concern with our employees and customers and clients, and how does that affect our business? And how would it affect our business if, let's say, 40% of our workforce, or if you're a school, your students or your teachers just didn't show up for a week or 2 weeks? What are the alternate means you would have to either conduct business or conduct whatever the business of your business is, whether it's education or retail, manufacturing? We would all be affected significantly from this epidemic or pandemic event. And that may result in a loss of a major income source. If your client is, you have an enterprise level client that, is 50% of your income. You love this client, it's a great client, but one day they do something really stupid that shows up, let's say, on social media, and let's say their stock drops significantly, so they have to tighten their belts and they lay off a significant number of employees, and they have to cut their vendor network down, and you're part of that vendor network. How are you going to do? How are you going to result? How are you going to replace that income? That leads into that public or brand damage event, right? So we're going to talk about that. I'm not going to go into that because we have seen a lot of that recently. The real big concern for everyone is a hacking event or data breach event. There are 2 types of companies. those that know they've been breached and those that don't. And that is the bottom line. And it's something we must be exceptionally diligent about every day. Still today, we have employees creating passwords of 1, 2, 3, 4. And if you're on the phone right now, go change your password. We need to help educate and keep our students and our businesses and our employees and our employers safer. And we can only do that by using best practices ourselves. And then we have those senior leaders. And what about a failure in that regard? We have seen instances of meltdowns of CEOs or C-suites or senior level leaders in this day of leveraging social media in order to skirt around traditional media. We've seen some people do it quite well and some people do it questionably. So if you wake up tomorrow morning and find out that something really embarrassing has happened from a senior leader in your organization and that trust or faith or support in your business, your company, or your enterprise has significantly changed from what you had previously enjoyed, how are you going to respond to that? And then, of course, there is an ever existing undercurrent of concern regarding terrorism. And so we have some really pretty significant things that keep us up at night. And what I want you to think about is within each of those areas, there's sort of these outlier events, right? There are nuances of all of these things that happen that are shocking to us. We just hadn't anticipated. There was a story recently about a boiler, huge multi-ton water boiler or boiler of some type in a manufacturing facility. I'm sorry, I don't know all the details. What I do know is when it exploded, it went flying across the property and through the roof of another building on the property, killing 3 people. I don't know that you can anticipate something like that occurring. Probably you can. Your facilities maintenance people are shaking their head, yes, we can. So why didn't we? And there are always going to be sort of these nuances of these larger buckets. So I want you to think right now, all of you, those of you who have joined with teammates, and you may be in a conference room or eating some croissants and watching this, I want you to take a moment to think about what the worst thing is that could happen to your organization today. Right now, if you got a call in 3 minutes, what's the worst thing that could happen? And then I want you to ask yourselves that more important question. Could you handle it? What would you do? Right now, that worst thing just happened. What are you going to do? What are the things that are most concerning in your organization today? These big buckets fall into some bit of a smaller bucket here. And we did a poll of about 1,000 companies, and what they told us was the number one thing we're most concerned about is being breached, a cyber attack. And, you know, that's a good thing to be concerned about because it is the number one concern of a lot of people right now. And a natural disaster is the second most significant concern. So people are saying, we think the business killers we're going to have to deal with are cyber attacks and natural disaster. Third is some act of violence on our property. And then we have a pretty even distribution of the others. A significant brand event is next in line. So when you think about that, your piece of that bucket, whatever that significant event was that you are concerned about and how you can handle it, and if you can handle it, your next question has to be, who are you going to contact? Who needs to know about this? Who's going to be affected by this? We've talked about, last month we talked about message maps and how you can go about preparing sort of those public messages that go out. But right now we're talking about you're sitting at your desk, someone calls you and says that we had a major issue at one of our manufacturing facilities and you are the one who is charged with making the next call? Do you have a book on a shelf that tells you what to do? Who is involved in that? Who are the people that need to know? Those people are a part of your intelligence network. And today, connecting with these people comes in many different forms. We can call them by telephone, we can email them, and we can connect with them on social media, because the risk that is occurring may be happening to them, and we may be affected. So if we're not connected face-to-face, we should at least be connected in a technological way so that we can send and receive information efficiently in times of crisis. Speaking of sending information efficiently in times of crisis, siren alarms, warning sirens, are a way of doing that, right? So when you hear an alarm, I lived in Kansas when I was a little girl. I know what those mean. I know what a tornado is. So those alarms go off. We know exactly what we're going to do. Well, recently, 2 weekends ago, somebody hacked into the 156 alarms or sirens in the Dallas area for 2 hours. Now, if they can hack them to go off, can they hack them not to? So now we have to think, okay, what if we don't have this communication system? What other way do we have of letting people know? As far as the city of Dallas having a good intelligence network created, it's really more important today now that we know there's a new vulnerability that they may not have known about or tested. My assumption is they did. We had some people joking about it. Surely it was a zombie apocalypse. That's what won. But on a serious side, this is a very serious crime. And it raises some very important concerns. And every city that has a warning siren system needs to be aware of and concerned. What about when the crane collapsed on the Tappan Zee Bridge? What were the reverberations? What ripple effect did this have to other people? Well, certainly people from Westchester County had a harder time getting into the city. And what if you had a group of students on a bus on the bridge when this happened? What if you had 3 bus loads? What if you were on your way to one of the most important client meetings of your life in the city and now you couldn't get there? What if you had just started a new job in the city and you weren't taking the train and now you had to figure out an alternate route? What if you were that company in Westchester and you had people coming in from the city to go to work and now they couldn't get there in an efficient way? Or they had to leave their houses at 4 o'clock in the morning to get to the bus, to get to the train, to get to your business. Are they still going to work for you if they can't get there in a simple way? So an event that you might have thought really had nothing to do with you suddenly has a great deal to do with you when you expand your thinking on the impact of a crisis and how you stay aware of it. Hey, how about that Atlanta traffic? Wow. Atlanta had a fire underneath one of their overpasses, and it burned a section out of I-85. And I don't know, for those of you who have never driven in Atlanta, next time you fly over in an airplane, it's really easy to see. There's north and south traffic, there's east and west traffic, and you can see it from an airplane because it's usually going pretty slowly. It's a difficult city at best to drive around in, although it's a beautiful city. So losing this significant portion of I-85 was a problem. Well, recently, my boss, Jim Satterfield, our CEO, was going on a trip somewhere, and he had called me, and it was like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I wondered why he was calling so early, and he said, well, he'd been on the road for a while, and he just had some things he wanted to talk to me about. And I asked him what time he left, and he said, I had to leave at 3:30 because I-20 is the only alternate route I can take, and because everybody else is taking that as well, it starts backing up at like 4 o'clock in the morning in order for people to get where they need to go, so I had to leave early. Well, guess what happened yesterday? I-20 buckled. There was a gas fire or an event underneath the road, and the fire caused the road to buckle. So now, not only, although it's my understanding it's reopened today, but for a period there, you couldn't get anywhere in Atlanta in a reasonable way. Well, let's think about this. If 50% of your employees can't get to work, at least at a reasonable time, and is it unreasonable for us to say to them, well, you just have to leave 5 hours earlier? Are we going to pay them for that extra travel time? How is your business going to operate if people can't get to you? Customers, vendors, and your employees. So we can say it's an interesting situation that happened, but let's think about it in terms of an interruption to our ability to exist. And do we have alternate plans? And with those alternate plans, do we have a way of connecting with people? If we can't go see them face-to-face because all of our roads are blocked, are we connected somehow technologically or digitally so that we can communicate effectively? That is the essence of what a predictive intelligence network is about. It's about combining data and people so that when a situation occurs, we can more easily communicate and learn about the situation. So let's start with sort of the physical real world of this. And the first step is look around. I think I may have mentioned to some of you who were on the call last month, we were doing some security assessment for a school that we work with in a Latin American country. And we were doing some of our assessment pieces via video. And we were analyzing the video so that we could spot vulnerabilities. And Jim Satterfield said to them, what are you going to do about the balcony of that apartment building right next to your property? And the folks at the organization were confused. They said, what balcony? And he said, there is a balcony that overlaps your, and he said, actually, it's only about a 6-foot jump down. So if I wanted to avoid your security, your gates, I could come through that balcony, jump down on your roof, and be in your school in no time. And this particular facility was a private school for, in this particular country, children that were highly protected because they were very easily the victim of kidnappings. And it turned out that there was a major thoroughfare, technically, through this apartment building to get to those kids. Because they saw it every day, they sort of didn't see it anymore. So you really need to be aware of your surroundings. What's the closest building to you? Think about that right now. What does it house? If you're in a multi-tenant building, do you know who's on the floor with you? Do you know who's in the building with you? How do you get a hold of the property management company? How close are the officials? Police, fire, first responders, do you know them? Have you ever gone over and brought a pizza to the firefighters and say, hey, thanks for what you do. Hope I don't have to see you. What's behind your building or behind your business? What's in front of it? Are you connected to any of these businesses or organizations or other officials, your mayor, your chamber of commerce? Are you connected via social accounts? Can these connections then help you message out or in a crisis? What if you can't get out? What if you can't get any information? But you got one cell phone, somebody's locked in a closet, and after you're able to get to 911, or if you're not able to, could you actually PM or DM someone through a social account? You could. It's happened. Will messaging these connections help keep people safer? Can you keep people away from your property if you need to? You know, whenever we've seen an act of violence on a workplace property or school property, a couple things happen. The websites for those organizations crash, right? Because we don't anticipate that 2 million people are going to suddenly hit our web properties. So people can't get any information, so they jump in their cars and they go to the facility. If it were my husband and I heard that something significant had happened at a facility where he was, I might just do that. Think about whether you would. Now, that's not helpful, but it's what we do, right? Because family trumps work or school anytime. So we need information coming in and going out to keep people safer, and so we need our neighbors. Is your neighbor's location a risk? That's the next thing we have to think about. When that boiler blew up in that facility, did we know that was a risk? I mean, that's something we have to think about. Is there a location near you that's a target? Is there a chemical plant? Is there something that you really need to be aware of? Are you next to a major train transportation route where a hazardous chemical or a hazardous chemical spill or a fire could significantly affect your building, your employees? How would you respond? And if you have to evacuate, where are those evacuation points? There was a campus it was in Baton Rouge, and they experienced something that was really disturbing when they had a violent scare on their campus a couple of years back. In that everyone tried to evacuate the campus at the same time in their cars, and they created gridlock, and no one could move because the campus is surrounded by paved streets, and there was just nowhere to go. And the police weren't prepared for suddenly everyone evacuating, which I don't understand. I don't understand why the university and the police hadn't coordinated how this evacuation was going to happen. Granted, you want people to get to safety as quickly as possible, but that was not the way to do it. There were accidents because of that evacuation that created even greater gridlock. It took 6 hours to clear up. Meanwhile, people abandoned their cars because they were afraid and ran to a nearby mall. Suddenly the mall was inundated with all these people that were panicked coming into its property. It was a mess. Don't underestimate how significant the lack of planning and foresight and thinking about these things can be in times of crisis. So we know that every crisis is a human crisis, and the reason we talk about this information is because by creating a robust network of people and technology through the combination of listening in real life and listening via technology, if an event occurs, we can be in a position to receive or send communication much more effectively, but more important, you may be able to see the behavior or the event coming. I mean, it is possible. Last week, there was a very tragic situation at a gym in Florida. Someone who had been released from employment came back and opened fire and killed 2 people. And this person posted heavily on social media. And traditional accounts, a Facebook account, a Twitter account. We also found there was another Facebook account that was not his real public persona, but maybe closer to his real persona. And by knowing these things in advance or being able to at least look for keywords that may be helpful to us, context, If somebody is saying, I hate my boss, or I hate those people, or I wish they'd fire me so I could kill them, and if we can put a geo-fence around an area and say that's coming out of this area and that person seems to be publicly tweeting more often than not from this gym, would we have the ability, hindsight is always 20/20, but wouldn't we try if we could? We are not doing anything when we do this, or you do this, or we do this together, that's covert in any way. This is public information. All we're doing is aggregating it so that we can see if there are trends that can help us to help keep people and property and others safe. By utilizing predictive intelligence, the earlier a problem is detected, we know the less impact it's going to have on your organization. When we're done with the session today, y'all should, I'm not going to tell you what you should do, but you could Google plot thwarted, school shooting plot thwarted, workplace violence episode avoided. That happens every day. We don't read about it because it's not bleeding, so it's not leading in the news. But it's happening more and more because people are using predictive intelligence in their intelligence networks, and they're paying attention, and they're prepared so that when they see a behavior of concern, they're taking action and saving lives. Initial threats or risk behaviors are frequently shared on social media, and most social media messaging can provide very specific information about people and location or events. And because this information is pretty targeted, if you know what you're looking for, we can get some really useful intelligence, and we are able to step in and intervene before a gun comes into the workplace, before a bomb is left in a public area. You know, what you're looking at when you see the screenshot is of the past Boston Marathon event where someone is saying, I'm okay, but something really bad just happened at the finish line. Many of our clients in the Northeast told us that we were the first message they got that something had happened. They hadn't heard from anyone yet. They didn't know something had happened, and we put an announcement out that said something serious has happened in your city. We're not sure if roads are going to close, if the city is going to close, but you need to either let your employees go home now, or you need to figure out a way if they're going to have to stay, how you're going to feed them and house them and all those other things. Your city may be closed down for an extended period of time. You're going to have to figure out alternate ways to get work done. And those were important message, and we became a part of their intelligence network. And then we have this situation that we just recently saw. You know, we've all seen now this story in the news for a significant period of time. We know that someone was dragged off a flight. We also know there was a scorpion on a flight. We know a married couple was taken off a flight. I got to tell you, I'm flying United on Sunday, and I'm hoping everything goes great. But this is not the story that you want for your company or your brand. What if you wake up and that's what you see on the morning news? What if you're sitting at your desk having a nice little time right now having lunch, and somebody comes in your office and says, you got to see this, and they show you a Facebook Live video of something happening right now in your parking lot that's going viral? And then how are you going to communicate out in a way that's effective and, quite frankly, correct? The first response that Oscar Munoz, who, by the way, had just been selected by PR Week as its Communicator of the Year, his first response was really not well conceived. I apologize for having to reaccommodate these customers. I think we've all seen now what a joke that's become in only a week. It's the meme of the moment. And the apology that came out the following day, which was obviously scripted and much more formal, came off as completely insincere because this one had come out the day before. This is the sentiment trend. On an average day, there was some negative sentiment toward United. On April 10th, way negative. All of the mentions of United in the lower image. The passenger being forced off the plane. Boop. Is that what you want your company trending for? How are you going to communicate about it? And in almost every situation we've seen where there has been a significant act or action of violence taken, there's been some social media chatter of some type regarding it that we could pick up by understanding the language of who are about to exhibit these behaviors of concern. We study things like this so that when we set up monitoring or an intelligence network on behalf of you and your organization, we understand the language that's being used. Everybody that used to know me, I'm sorry, but Omaha changed me and blanked me up. And the school I attend is even worse. You're going to hear about the evil blank I did, but that blank in school drove me to this. I want you guys to remember me for who I was before this. I know I greatly affected the lives of the family's room, but I'm sorry. Millard South High School student Robert Butler Jr., his last post before he shot and killed the assistant principal and wounded the principal during an attack. We saw the San Bernardino attack. That was a domestic violence incident that was visited upon a school, and a young boy was standing behind his teacher when her estranged husband opened fire and killed him. Could we have seen something? I don't know. I mean, he had some Facebook posts that were disturbing. It's hard to put two and two together, but we should at least try. He says it's the folks who think they have nothing to lose with their evil ways that puts innocent people at risk to die. Most fed up people kill the innocent. And he did. He killed Jonathan Martinez, who was only 8 years old. Everything we do has to be in order to find the threats to make these types of activities end. And we can. We know we can. The first thing we do is we become aware of these risks. We put it into context. We have a team of people who understand how to put these phrases into context. Is it a song that's popular right now? Is it a poem? Are they the lyrics to something? Is it a meme that's going around? And then we leverage tools and training, either doing it for you, doing it with you, with your team, or teaching your team how to understand issues and surface them in a safe and legal way. Just taking public postings and because while technology is used to connect all of these concepts and ideas, it's the people that truly make the intelligence network work. This PowerPoint is going to be available in PDF form on our website, I believe later on today. It could be tomorrow. And in it is some really good information about how to spot behaviors of concern, how to work predictive intelligence into your behavioral threat program today, and how we can help you do that, and how you can reach out to us for help doing that. Because we asked about 900, I think it was 940 people in this question, businesses, do you currently use external intelligence to identify potential threats? And technically, anything but the yes is a no, and 70% of you don't. You leverage it for marketing, but you don't leverage it for safety, and we'd like you to. We'd like you to move your company from this sort of stage one, immature place where everything that happens in your organization is a surprise, to one that's either supportive or strategic in its culture. And my dog says hello. It's almost time for us to end today, so I apologize for that. So let us talk to you a little bit more about how we can help you move your program forward in a more robust way. And you can download the paper from our website at firestorm.com brief. I want to thank you for attending today. Brenda, I'm sorry we've run just a little bit over. And you can follow up with Brenda Truelove and her programs at professionallyspeaking.ua.edu. Brenda's email and phone number are there for your contact information. And if you need any other information, please don't hesitate to reach out to Masullo at firestorm.com, webinars at firestorm.com, or find any information at our website. Thanks so much for your time today. I appreciate it. I've gone a little bit over, so I'm going to close us up today and say have a great day, enjoy your spring, and we'll talk to you next month. Goodbye.